Shannon rinsed the floor mop carefully so that it wouldn't leave dirty stains. Today, Peter had lost all his money in the casino again, and he would definitely be in a bad mood. His life was completely empty. All he did was gambling in casinos and having fun with girls. It seemed as if he had set himself the goal of spending his whole life uselessly. Peter could live a happy and interesting life. He inherited a chain of pharmacies from his father, and it was a very profitable business because everyone had health problems. Shannon would be happy to have such a wonderful life. But Peter was always unhappy about something and was constantly getting into trouble. There was no one to leave her an inheritance. Her mom had died of viral pneumonia caused by a severe flu when Shannon was only 6 years old. And her stepfather didn't care about anything but a bottle of alcohol. Shannon still remembers the day when the women from social services came to their house and tried to talk to him. But her stepfather didn't even understand what they wanted from him. He listened to them, waved his hand, and left for his room. Not surprisingly, soon Shannon found herself in an orphanage. But compared to a cold and empty house with a drunken and aggressive stepfather, the orphanage wasn't that bad, and Shannon got used to it pretty quickly. The fear in her eyes was replaced by sad thoughts. By the time she reached adulthood, she was a smart, sociable, and serious girl. At first, she was very lucky. After graduating from the orphanage, the state provided her with a small house on the outskirts of the city. It was a blessing to have her own home. Even though the house was very old and needed repairs, it seemed like a marvelous palace to Shannon. It felt especially good in the evening when she could make some mint tea and sit on the porch, watching the day's noise fade, and the whole neighborhood fall into a night's sleep. Soon, Shannon got a job as a sales clerk in a small store nearby. It was close to her home and not crowded. Shannon didn't like crowds. On the one hand, she grew up in an orphanage and was used to being surrounded by people. But on the other hand, when there were so many people that it was impossible to remember their faces, she felt anxious, as if she would get lost in the crowd and wouldn't even find her way home. All in all, the little store was a great place and she could have worked there for a long time. But after 4 months of working there, the manager discovered that some goods had been stolen. Shannon cried, but she couldn't prove her innocence. Her orphanage childhood only increased the manager's distrust. Shannon guessed that another cashier, Kate, was the thief, but she couldn't prove anything. Once, out of naivety, she was in a hurry to get home because she was waiting for a plumber, and she didn't count the money in the cash register. And then, Kate went to the manager and complained that Shannon was stealing goods. The manager yelled at Shannon in a rage and threatened to call the police. But eventually, he just asked her to sign a bill of debt. But how was she supposed to pay it off? She had no college education and no experience in good positions. No one would hire her now after that scandal. Sometimes she could find random short-term jobs, but the earnings were meager. For 6 months, the girl managed to pay only 1/10 of the debt. And then, Shannon felt unwell thinking about the first phone call when a gruff voice uttered, "So, are you going to repay your debt to Michael or do you want to get in trouble?" Michael was the owner of that store. Shannon was very frightened then, realizing that Michael had involved the local gangsters to solve the problem. The girl was afraid of them because when she was a child, the boys had told her at the orphanage that there was a group of people that even the police were afraid of. She didn't know if it was true or not, but she was afraid to leave the house. From time to time, she received threatening messages, and several times she even found a note at her door with the words, "Pay back the debt." No one knows how long it would have lasted, but the situation took an unexpected turn. On one of the darkest nights, a terrible thunderstorm broke out, and, as if trying to deprive Shannon of the last thing she had, the lightning struck the roof of her old house. A short circuit has occurred. The old wooden walls quickly burst into flames. It took the firefighters a long time to extinguish the house, and then they left behind only charred parts of the house and a girl crying nearby. So now she not only had to find a job, but also a place to live. This whole story had only one advantage. Shannon's new phone number finally got Michael and the debt collectors out of her life. At least now there would be some time to save some money to pay off the debt. In fear, she decided to look for a place to live on the other side of the city. Luckily, she quickly found a place to live. A kind old lady, Mrs. Duncan, rented out a room in her house. They quickly became friends, and sometimes Shannon felt as if she had found the grandmother she had lacked when she was a child. Deep in her heart, she hoped that the job issue would be solved just as miraculously. But miracles only happen if you don't expect them at all. Shannon went to many job interviews but was rejected everywhere. On one of those useless days, she wandered into a pharmacy, more expecting a glass of water than a job. Suddenly, a young red-haired man peered out from behind the counter and said, "Hi, are you looking for a job? I'd be happy to hire such a beautiful girl. Our cleaning lady has just quit. Are you interested in that position? Later, we'll find a better position for you." It was Peter, the owner of a pharmacy chain. As it turned out later, he loved women and all kinds of life's pleasures. But Shannon didn't know that yet, and was happy to have a friendly boss, a fixed income, and the prospect of career development. The next day, she met the two pharmacists, Annie and Stacy, pretty but arrogant girls. The communication wasn't friendly at all. Both girls considered themselves better than Shannon in everything. But compared to Kate, the debt to Michael and the burned-down house, it wasn't a problem. Besides, Peter had promised Shannon another position. Shannon diligently scrubbed the floor every day and waited for positive changes. Peter stopped by the pharmacy from time to time, smiled at Annie and Stacy, and brought Shannon some small gift, chocolate or a bouquet of flowers, took her by the hand, looked into her eyes, and left again. But he never mentioned another position again. "Do you like Peter? Or maybe he likes you?" Annie said, looking at another bouquet. "No," Shannon objected, clutching the flowers to her. "Peter is just a wonderful and kind man. He gave me a job at the hardest time in my life, and even promised me a better position soon." "A better position?" Annie laughed. "And you believe that? Are you really that naive, or are you just pretending?" "What better position? There aren't many positions here: pharmacist, accountant, and sales manager. Each of those positions requires a special education." "What kind of education do you have?" "High school," Shannon answered confusedly. "Well, then you have only one option: to become the next girlfriend of this womanizer. But he'll get bored of you quickly. Do you understand?" Shannon's eyes filled with tears, and she walked away, not even noticing that she had dropped the flowers. The next time she saw Peter's car pull up in front of the pharmacy, Shannon ran outside, so she could talk to the man without any witnesses. The pharmacy owner got excited, taking it as an expression of affection. But Shannon wanted to talk about a different topic. "Peter, please tell me, is it true that I can get another position here? Or did you just want to cheer me up then? I'm not asking for a promotion today, but I need to understand what is possible for me and what isn't." "Another position?" Peter was in no mood to talk about a job. "You don't like your job, but I can only hire someone with a college degree as a pharmacist. But you know, actually, your life could really be much better in your spare time." He tried to put his arm around Shannon's waist. Shannon pulled away, turned around without saying a word, and quickly walked back to the pharmacy. This time, Annie had told the truth. Shannon was returning from work in a terrible mood. Suddenly, a faint but insistent squeak came from the garbage can. Shannon slowed down and, obeying some inner instinct, walked over and looked into the garbage can. There was a cardboard box, tightly bound with duct tape. The squeak was coming from this box. "I can't believe it. People have thrown away their pet, knowing that it will surely die here." Sadness was instantly replaced by anger. The girl began to tear the box, letting the captive out. The prisoner turned out to be a little black kitten. He was standing on trembling paws, looking at his rescuer as if trying to understand if his luck had ended or not. Shannon stroked the kitten's soft fur and realized she couldn't let him out of her arms. "Well, I have found you in a box, so that's what I'm going to call you from now on." Shannon laughed. But what Mrs. Duncan would say? What if she won't let Shannon bring a kitten into the house? The elderly lady was a little surprised, but after hearing the story of Box's rescue, she went to the kitchen to find some food for a poor animal. Little Box ate the sausage with gusto and fell asleep in Shannon's arms. For some reason, the girl felt so calm and comfortable and fell into a deep sleep, cradling her new friend gently in her arms. The situation really improved a bit. Peter stopped bringing Shannon flowers and chocolates. Annie and Stacy also relaxed and even got used to Shannon. And now a little kitten was always waiting for the girl at home. However, the pharmacy business was on the verge of bankruptcy. One day, walking out of the pharmacy, Peter suddenly said, "Most likely, I will have to sell this pharmacy. Therefore, try to find a new job while you still have time." The girls looked at each other. Stacy was the first to comment on the situation. "We have nothing to worry about. Pharmacists and cleaners are not important positions. I don't think the new owner will fire us to hire someone else. Besides, we should wait and watch the situation. Maybe the new owner will be better than Peter." Annie and Shannon silently agreed with her, and the days went on as usual until, on one of those ordinary days, a skinny elderly man in a shabby jacket entered the pharmacy. He asked if there was a medicine he needed and, having received an affirmative answer, began to look through his pockets for money. The search was unsuccessful, and the elderly man looked confusedly at the girls. "Girls, help me. I beg you. I left my wallet at home. Please give me the medicine, and I will bring you the money in a couple of hours. I urgently need to go to the train station to meet my son, but I feel dizzy. I can leave my watch or anything else as collateral. I really need to get to the train station. I haven't seen my son for years." "Grandpa, we can't give you the medicine for free, and we don't need your watch either." Annie was adamant. The elderly man turned to Stacy, but she defiantly walked away. Only Shannon felt sorry for Grandpa. She asked Annie to give the grandpa the medicine, and if he didn't bring the money this evening as promised, Shannon would pay for it. A few minutes later, Peter worked into the pharmacy. "What the hell is going on in my pharmacy? Who gave you the right to give me the medication for free?" he yelled at Shannon. But the poor grandpa felt unwell. "If he doesn't bring the money, I'll pay for everything." But Peter didn't want to hear any excuses. After telling Shannon that she was fired, he walked away, continuing to insult the girl. Shannon slowly went to pack her belongings, not believing that this monstrous injustice had happened to her. When she was on her way to the exit, the same elderly man entered the pharmacy, accompanied by a young handsome man in a beige suit. "Look, son, here she is, my savior. If it hadn't been for this girl, I wouldn't have made it to the train station." The old man handed Shannon the crumpled banknotes with trembling hands. "You're welcome." She lowered her eyes. "Give the money to the cashier. But I no longer work in this pharmacy." "But who fired you?" the old man's son suddenly asked. "Peter, our boss," Shannon replied. "Well, he's almost your former boss." The man objected. "I gave him the down payment for this pharmacy, and tomorrow we'll sign all the papers, and I'll become the new owner of this pharmacy. So, today you can really go home. But tomorrow, please go back to work. And please accept my sincere gratitude for taking care of my father." Shannon looked at the man in surprise, not believing what she was hearing. Annie and Stacy looked at the grandpa angrily, as if he was guilty of something. The grandpa was smiling naively, but his son was very serious. Finally, Shannon found the strength to nod her head. The man smiled, stood aside slightly, and the girl stepped out onto the porch, squinting in the bright rays of the sun. She hurried home to tell Mrs. Duncan everything. The next day, Shannon came to work and discovered that the pharmacy was undergoing a global change. Arrogant Annie and Stacy had been replaced by two new girls, Daisy and Haley. They were very different. Daisy was tall and stern, while Haley was a chubby and friendly girl. But Shannon quickly made friends with both of them. But the miracles were not over. In the evening, the new owner of the pharmacy, Henry, arrived and suggested Shannon to go to the central office. Shannon walked timidly through the corridors and was completely confused in the office, hesitating to take a seat in the leather armchair behind the polished desk. "Have a seat. Don't be shy," Henry encouraged her. "I would like to get to know you better. All I know so far is that your name is Shannon. You are a decent and selfless person. Please tell me about yourself. I plan to completely change the HR policy at the pharmacy chain." Shannon felt embarrassed. She had never told her life story to a stranger before. Henry didn't rush her. Shannon sighed and began to tell her unhappy story. Without even noticing, she told her new boss everything about the debt for the stolen goods, the burned house, Mrs. Duncan, and her cute kitten. When she had finished, Henry remained silent for some time, and then he said, "Everything you have told me is a vivid example of how life failures often help people to become decent, honest, and kind no matter what. Shannon, let's do the following. I need a person who would control and analyze sales turnover in pharmacies and give me accurate information. You are a decent person. I think I can trust you. But there is one condition. Such work requires specialized education. You are an orphan, so you can enter the university free of charge, but you will have to study part-time, and it's quite difficult. And one more thing. My lawyer will solve the problem with the debt. They didn't go to the police, and the incident was never officially recorded. Your bill of debt is null and void, especially since they forced you to sign it and threatened you. So, are you ready to do your best to make a drastic change in your life?" "Of course," Shannon exclaimed, unable to believe her happiness. "I'll do my best." "Sounds good," Henry said contentedly. Shannon felt like she was dreaming. The piece of paper on which she was writing her application, her own desk and computer where she would have to work tomorrow, and the beautiful modern office. But the surprises didn't end that day. On her way out of the office, she met Henry's father. "Hello. I'm so glad to see you again. By the way, my name is Andrew," the old man said with a friendly smile. "Hello. I didn't even recognize you at first. You look amazing today." Shannon laughed when she noticed that he was wearing a new gray suit and shirt instead of his old shabby jacket. "Henry told me to buy new clothes," the man said with embarrassment. "He scolded me for not spending the money he sent me and living only on my pension. But times are unreliable now, you know. I thought something might happen to his business. In this case, I'd give him all the money he sent me over the years. I didn't realize he had become so rich now. Well, now your son is back. He's by your side, and everything's going to be fine. Of course, you are good, so sincere and kind. I wish my son had such a wife. He is almost 30 years old, but he has no wife or children. You know, if you don't mind, I'll do my best to make things work out for you and Henry. Come over for dinner tonight. We can all get to know each other better. Will you come?" "Of course, Andrew. Why not?" Shannon laughed in response, thinking about how generous the world could be.